Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're well. You're amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. It's Saturday, and this is video 2 of 2. If you missed the first one, go check it out after this video, of course. I'll put the link in the pinned comment so you can find it. But anyway, what are we talking about in this video? Well, obviously, yesterday we went over the Bodycam footage. I did a live earlier on. It was an unscheduled live. Thank you for everyone who watched it. And I just took 2 smaller segments of it. One that was the initial walkthrough and separated that from a slightly longer segment that was the interview of Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, just so people could go to those specific areas and look at it with a lot of the fluff removed. But I wanted to come here today to talk about some of, and look, this list is not exhaustive, and if there's any real red flags that you thought of or to you were red flags, let me know down below in the comments. And my idea is to go live potentially tomorrow night to have a proper discussion about everything that we've got so far. But for me, there was some real big red flags in the footage, and the more as the dust settles and time progresses, they play on your mind and you start to get super frustrated with it. Like there was something that bugged me. It would appear that Bethany Funk, let's talk about Bethany Funk to start with. Bethany Funk don't even appear to have been there. When law enforcement first turned up, it didn't look like Dylan Mortensen was there. Not Dylan Mortensen, Bethany Funk, sorry. Didn't look like she was there. It looked like she actually turned up later on. And I look at that because I looked at what she was wearing, and I tried to go back to the early stages of the footage and try and find her in amongst everyone that was there, and I couldn't. And it wasn't until later on that she kind of appeared out of the blue. And that she was questioned in that 40-minute segment, asked whether she was there, and she couldn't seemingly give she couldn't give a straight answer. Were you there all the time? Was you there throughout the entire situation? And she couldn't answer the fucking question. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that ain't a hard question, is it? It's not a difficult question. Were you there all night? Yes, I was there all night. But she couldn't answer that question in a straightforward fashion. So my question now is, was Bethany Funk even there for the entire duration of what happened here? Was she even in this house at the time of the crime? Because how would you know? Realistically, you've got a situation here where you saw it yourself. The law enforcement turns up, and there are just pockets of people like fucking spectators all outside this property. Like some weird fucking, I don't know, macabre rubbernecking camp. And I don't understand why law enforcement allows it. I don't understand why law enforcement allows these people to congregate, and the two, which at this point in time, like it or not, these would be your primary suspects. Your prime suspects in this crime, when you have multiple homicide inside a residence and 2 individuals who are alive, they are your prime suspects. So you should, and they should have been separated from the scene, separated from one another, taken back to the station and interviewed independently immediately, and then kept apart. And this did not happen. Not only did this not happen, but law enforcement, again, allowed the continual congregation of individuals on the outside of this property, and they allowed them to maneuver between one another, maneuver around the groups, to sit, to conversate, to converse, to talk, and that fucking bugs me. I don't understand how that is good police work in this instance, how that can help the investigation. We're already at a situation where by this point in time, it has taken approximately 8 hours for you to be told that this crime has happened. You are flat out lied to by them telling you. Dylan Mortensen states that they went to sleep, which we know through later court documentation that there is only a period of around 90 minutes, correct me if I'm wrong, that I would class as dark time, where there doesn't seem to be any activity. The rest of that time seems to be filled with an abundance of activity, whether that be individuals trying to contact other people inside the property or activities as stipulated in the court documentation that was included and not limited to the aforementioned communications between one another, trying to reach out to other people, including family, social media interaction, and photography and videography interactions. So there was a large proportion of their evening and that 8-hour period that was lied about direct to police on scene. So another red flag obviously is the lack of bushy eyebrow statement. And why is this important? I touched on this in video 1 today, and it's important because it was going to be one of the main things that were going to be used if this went to trial to point the finger at Brian Koberger and say, this individual saw this individual pointed out bushy eyebrows, and you can see by this individual he appears to have bushy eyebrows, therefore that makes her a credible witness and her story has remained consistent throughout, when in fact that was complete and utter bullshit. And Judge Hippler should have known that, but seemingly he either ignored it or he manipulated the truth for his benefit or the benefit of the prosecution. We also have red flags in that the crime inside his house, I know there's a lot of redactions in here, but I would have thought that this has a lot to do with the recent suing, if you like, of the city of Moscow by 2 of the victims' families for releasing imagery around 2 of the rooms. So look, there's going to be a lot of redactions, but what you can see is the rest of the property. You can see the property as a whole. Now, we have some situations that would raise red flags in that law enforcement go in this property and there's contamination straight away. They should have been suited, they should have been booted, they should have had hand protections, they should have had foot protections, clothing protections, and they should have not contaminated that scene. But it would appear that there was no measures taken whatsoever to protect or preserve the crime scene. You then have a situation where you have the disappearing and reappearing knife and the beer pong table. Now, at one point, this knife isn't even on there, and then later on, it appears on there, which doesn't seem to have any correlation with Hunter, who was supposed to be the person who interacted with this knife, because this seems to the 2 images that show it there and not there are after law enforcement have arrived. So look, I don't understand that. Is it really important? Who knows? I don't know. It is if you're trying to cast some kind of story that answers certain questions, and you have to set up props in certain places to make that story make sense. I don't know. We still don't have on this body cam footage at all, or verbally, any mention of the knife sheath, even though there is a lot of audio redactions as well. But it isn't until, I believe, around 5 p.m. that this knife sheath isn't seen anyway, which again is alarming considering that this is 5 hours later and they're supposed to be in here looking at the scene and processing the scene. And bearing in mind that this is a mass killing, and you would think that time is of the essence, and the first few hours after this crime takes place are the absolute most important. And at this stage, they don't know if this person is going to kill again. Are they in the vicinity of this area? Do you know what I mean? It's a fucking odd one. But there are multiple problems here. And the biggest ones of all, sadly, goes back to the surviving roommates yet again, and it is that this is the first interview that you're getting an insight into what happened, what was seen and what was heard by the people who was in the home, and what they did, or more importantly, what they failed to do. And it would appear that Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, their stories are completely separate from one another, which again begs the question as to whether Bethany Funk was there at all, and whether she is just being told what was happening and she's kind of just gone along with it and offered her rendition of things that she heard at the times that she was there. Who knows? Maybe that's why we haven't heard a massive amount from Bethany Funk, because she wasn't able to assist in the way that they wanted to steer this story, this narrative, and they needed Dylan Mortensen's story to be the driving force, the driving factor. But it still raises the question as to if Dylan Mortensen is being honest at this stage, and that is that she is seeing and hearing the screams, she's hearing people talk, she's hearing people running around the house. Then first of all, that beer pong table, I don't understand how the beer pong table is still sat in situ where it is. If you are running away from someone, if you see something that forces you to run away, then that beer pong table, in theory, should have been the thing that saved your life. Because if you get to the other side of that table, then the other person isn't going to be able to get to you. You can use it as a block. In fact, if you start grabbing hold of that table and pushing it around, you're going to make so much commotion that somebody in that house, because there's two other people who we know are alive, law enforcement could have been called. Now, it makes me wonder whether that is something that happened, whether the individual who was running, which I believe is Xana, has come down the stairs and she has used this beer pong table as a block, but it hasn't worked. But in order to avoid having to question, so you didn't fucking hear that come over, did this property start having to be cleaned up and cleared up to straighten up? Because that beer pong table to me is a huge red flag. Some individuals running away and they're running down the side of it. They don't hit it. They don't knock anything over on it. They completely miss it. And the individual chasing does the same. They don't push it out of the way. They don't shove it. They, carefully maneuver themselves around it. Again, to me, it's something that is really fucking strange to me. I don't understand it. Now, a lot of people have talked about the lack of blood between the rooms. Like some fucking stupid pricks making comments like, oh, but the blood was in the rooms. We've seen it previously. You're ignoring it. No, we get that there's blood in the fucking rooms. We've seen some of the pictures, including the redactions, and that there's blood in there. The point of the matter is, does the blood that you've seen go hand in hand with what you've been told? What you're being told? We've been told that Xana Kernodle, for instance, was attacked and stabbed ferociously, the multiple times. 50 times? Kaylee Gonsalves, pretty much the same. But yet there is nothing seemingly outside of those rooms. Nothing. There's nothing. Bearing in mind that this person is obviously doing what he's doing, he's interrupted to the point where he then turns and runs after another individual, yet seemingly doesn't get a speck of blood on the railing of the stairs, on the wall. These are white walls. And it's like what I said during that video. You would have thought if someone's chasing after somebody in order to get them, they're going to hit the wall. They're going to touch the wall. You would think that. It's dark. You're running. Like Dylan Mortensen said, that the people running were running as fast as they could run. That was her words. So she's hearing people running quickly down the stairs at pace, but yet the person doing the chasing, who was just at this point would have done 2 brutal attacks, gets not one fucking thing on the floor, on the walls, nowhere between these rooms. And then gets to the second room. And again, as aforementioned, Xana, the brutal attack we've heard about. Ethan Chapin, very, very strategic. Very, very fucking strategic. Almost, this reeks of some kind of specialist immobilization move where they tried to tell us that Ethan had been, things had been done to his legs that were more indicative of being random and just brutally random, when in fact it wasn't. It was very specific, very, very, there was a point to that. And, even these things, I've spoken about the injuries before, the way in which this killer would go to very specific areas, underneath the clavicle, subclavian artery sever. These are indicative of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. Very incredibly skillful, very, very quick in terms of how you're going to dispatch someone or render them fucking useless to coming after you. Brian Kohberger, does Brian Kohberger look like this individual? I don't see that. And I get what some people are going to say. Well, there isn't a specific mold. I just look at Brian Kohberger and I just don't see someone with the capability, the capacity to do this, whether that be mentally or physically. So yeah, there are a lot of red flags there. To me, just something feels incredibly off. With this entire situation. For this crime to be such a rushed crime done in such a very tight, small time frame, to me, it looked like there was more control. It didn't look like rushed. It didn't look like people running around the house fucking screaming and it being done like that. It looked more like, I'll tell you what it looked like. It felt like, when you look at the rest of the house, it did look like these people had been dispatched in their fucking sleep. In their sleep. And the rest is not how this went down. But I don't know. I don't know why they would try to interject, running around the house and screaming and chasing fucking people, and if it didn't happen. But the house just doesn't offer any evidentiary support to that. We've got this latent footprint, the Van's print outside Dylan Mortenson's door, but then even what Dylan Mortenson says about what she sees and the person leaving, even that, she doesn't even seem to have seen them leave. Whereas earlier on, we'd been led to believe that she literally watches them walk past her and out through the back sliding door, when in actuality, she didn't even watch them leave. So I just don't know. There is so many red flags. And I'll tell you why they're red flags, because this is supposed to be the story of what happened to these young adults. This is supposed to be the version of events. And the downside is the version of events and the story just keeps changing, constantly changing over time. And when stories constantly keep changing, the ability to trust them diminishes over time also. And when you factor in how the 2.5 years have gone and how they concluded, how do you trust that as well, when there are indicators in amongst all the documentation that would suggest that this case was more about pushing a narrative out to the public to make the public feel a certain way about the individual, to back them into a corner where they had no choice but to plea. And the person in charge of that is a state-appointed ex-alumni University of Idaho student in Ann Taylor. And still in the aftermath of this, we are still seeing them continue to try to convince the masses that this was right. And we are now seeing literally videos of Brian Kohberger in his cell being told about the systematic torture of Brian Kohberger, almost as if they are priming us for something. And if you missed video 1, I speak more about that in that video. So go and check that out now, because I'm off. Let me know down below what you think and feel about it all. And I'll catch you all tomorrow, live hopefully. Mwah.